Okay, hey, it's noon. Wow, how'd the time go by? Okay. What I'm going to do here is I'll try to type and chew gum at the same time here. I will talk in voice and show slides. You will help with the presentation by participating and asking questions or comments anytime. Okay. Oh, I'm just it's the old walking and chewing gum at the same time. Can I do two things at once? In fact, actually, I find it hard to talk and do slides and stuff. So I will probably sit on this nice little flower here, which will reduce one variable, and then I can show the slides better. Okay, let's see what we got here. Okay, hey, everybody's kind of closer. This is a more intimate group than we had in the first one. Everybody's closer to the stage, more or less. Cool, I like it. Okay, actually, I did one earlier for the Asian crowd, although it's kind of funny because there weren't many people from Asia, but it worked anyway. Okay, what I'm doing here is we had a student who suggested a topic, and this is great. I'd love to have that type of things. If somebody can suggest topics and I'm able to present on them, then that works for me. So they said, well, why don't we do something on Elon Musk? And of course, Elon Musk is in the news and all kinds of cool stuff because he's got some money, ambition and intelligence and all this good things. So let's take a look at what he's been doing. I had to find out over the week. Okay, so before now, I always like presentations where we all participate. So I would probably ask you some questions, and you can ask and comment and all that good stuff. What's he been doing? What's on the first slide here? What happened in February 6th, I think, 2018? Yeah. Nice car. Probably I can't afford it. Launched a Tesla into space. Okay. Yes. Okay. There's two things that were kind of. There are two things. Not on that highway. No. If I had a few hundred million or a billion or whatever, he's got about 20 billion. That could be a possibility. What's two kind of interesting things about launching the Tesla into space? I mean, lots of interesting things. Name one. Yeah. Okay. There were so many things involved with this. It's kind of hard to start. Recoverable rockets. We'll take a look at that. In other words, recoverable parts of rockets. Well, people become rich for, in other words, government, think of it this way. A government contract gets its money from whom? People, right? Okay, so and then the government pulls the money together and does stuff that people can't unless they're rich, like Elon Musk. Now, on the other hand, Elon Musk has given back a lot more than he's gotten from the government. It's just that the government gets involved because they're able to pull together resources that he can't, which we'll talk about here in a minute as well. Waste of a Tesla. Well, actually, if he gave everybody a Tesla who wanted one, it would probably take about $1 trillion rather than a few billion. So, it's kind of the idea that, uh, well, now that's a very good question. In other words, is it leaking oil in space? I don't think so because the oil is frozen, but, um, or gas. No. So I'll bet you he stripped it. I bet you he probably got everything out of it. In fact, I don't think I wouldn't set it up with a motor myself, but the whole idea, one of the things, yeah, governments tend to spend stuff on things that we might not like them to spend it on, but we elect them. Yeah, Iceland. Iceland's actually doing quite well. I am doing a virtual internship with the U.S. Embassy in Iceland right now, and yep, that's true. They Iceland did quite well. They had a catastrophic experience in 2008, and they've bounced back to be one of the fastest growing economies in Europe, and their GDP and all that good stuff like that is really, really good, and they're doing fine. The only thing is they are, yeah, of course, the economies, an economy of scale is a little bit different. They only have about 200,000 people. I mean, we have more than that in my neighborhood almost in the city I live in the U.S. Um, so that's not, yeah, exactly. Except now you have to watch it a little bit because if you only have 200,000 people and you depend on tourists, which right now I think they have some 4 or 5 times as many tourists as they do people every year, that things can be a little volatile too. So if your tourist numbers come down, it affects everybody. So the funny thing is if you go to Iceland, say in the summer, you'll probably hear more people speaking something other than Icelandic. It's kind of like when I lived in Hawaii, and I will get to the presentation here real quickly. Is when I lived in Hawaii, it was funny because nobody living in Hawaii actually went down to Waikiki Beach because there were too many tourists down there. Okay, so let's take a look at what Elon Musk is doing and has done, and all that good stuff. The first thing is that how did he? I mean, I couldn't have put a big red, cherry red Tesla into space. So how is he able to do that? And excuse me, what's the significance of that? There's a few things I've heard so far, so let's take a look. Okay, so the first thing is, who is this person? Who is Elon Musk? Well, if you look it up, it's not too hard to find that in other words, the statistics sort of thing. For example, he's listed as the 27th most powerful person in the world. I don't know what um, that all means, but the idea is that certainly he's in the news. He's also got a lot of money. He's only got haha. He's only got yeah, economics and physics exactly. I noticed you noticed that because he certainly put it to work. In other words, the first thing he did was he is very inquisitive about how things work, and frankly, he knows how things work. Computers and physics and stuff like that, and then economics. That is a good combination. Noticing that. Now he's only got and business, all that good stuff, and connections and everything else to be successful, and a lot of bravado. How did he get that? Well, that's what we kind of have up there. Is that um, so he was born in South Africa. So how did he get to be a Canadian American citizen? Well, let's take a look at that. That's where the fun part comes out as to like, who is he that he would launch a cherry red Tesla into space? Well, one of the things is that his family was very adventurous. For example, his You have it up there that his grandparents were the first to fly from South Africa to Australia in a small plane. That obviously took a lot of guts. That was probably quite some time ago. Probably not as far as like where Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic, but the same sort of thing. That's a long distance. And yeah, I know. Some people have everything. Okay. Um, so yeah, and that too. And of course, it never hurts to have a few $100 million. But then again, he didn't start out with a few $100 million. His father was very strict. Now, on the other hand, his father was rather wealthy, and the children didn't want for anything, but they had to work for it. In other words, they weren't just given it. And his father was strict, and he made them work for it. And his grandmother, for example, was the first chiropractor in Canada. That's kind of one of the little trivials. And they were in Canada, so that's a key there. But Elon Musk and his brother and his mother went to Canada to escape Elon's going into the army in South Africa. And one of the keys to what he did is he wants to reduce global warming, basically human impact, colonize Mars, because he thinks we're basically headed toward extinction the rate we're going. And there's a number of people that would probably agree with him. So that, in any case, that's kind of what his guiding thing. Okay, so let's take a look. Well, Mars is the best choice we have right at the moment. The closest to whatever we think of as a place to live. So, yeah, all that. Venus is too hot. I saw a movie the other day called The Titan, and it was about, without spoiling it, it was about how they modified a human to be able to live on Titan. The science wasn't very good. Yeah, I thought the science was kind of hokey, but the idea was interesting. And I won't say anything more about that. You can watch it on Netflix or something. Okay, so how do you get $20 billion in order to do whatever you want to do? One of it was in 1995 when the web and the ability for people to even use the internet was a pretty new thing, and lots of people were doing these .com type businesses. He designed a business with his brother and a friend of the family's named Greg Curry, who they happened to be living in Canada at the time, remember, because if you look at when he was born in 1995, he was only 24. And they wanted to take advantage of this thing because he'd been up on it. Now, Mike, there's some interesting things on perhaps you could live in clouds on Venus. Now, of course, the clouds of Venus are sulfuric acid, but, here again, Mars does not have, except for the rarefied atmosphere and all that good stuff like that, a little more compatible with life as we know it. Okay, so in any case, they're in Toronto, Canada, and they want to get in on one of these .com things. They form a business called Zip2. Now, Zip, as I asked the last group, does anybody recognize what a zip code is? It's called something else in another language. Oh, okay. Let's see. What about the first chiropractor? Somebody's looking this stuff up. Cool. It was from Minnesota. Okay, well, so postal code. Yeah, that's what it's called in most places. ZIP is a acronym for Zone Information Progress or some other thing like that. I forget what it's called, but back in 1963 in the United States. So postal code. And the idea was nowadays, what do you do? If you want to go from one place to another, you just stick your GPS in, stick it in GPS and or one of the Google Maps or whatever, and off you go, and it gives you directions. Right? Okay, for Apple or whatever. But back in 1995, over 20 years ago, they developed a little app before there were apps, to at least web, so that you stick in 2 zip codes and it would give you directions. Pretty cool. Well, I've never heard of a zip tube, but it was enough of an idea anyway for Compaq, who was, of course, an early PC company, to buy their company for $300 million. How nice. I'd love to develop something that somebody would buy for $300 million. So now you have $100 million or whatever to do whatever you want with. And so they invested it in a company called XCOM, which I've never heard of. And XCOM, but it became something we've probably all heard of, which is PayPal. Now, if you're old enough to remember, in the 90s, web pages were kind of nice. They were better than sending out hard copy catalogs or whatever to just the people that you knew their address. Here again, you could put something on the web, people could go to it and see this information, but you still had to buy stuff regularly. In other words, send a check-in or credit card or whatever, call up the company and this sort of thing. And it wasn't until PayPal, although I do remember there was something before PayPal, but it wasn't until PayPal where essentially you could pay something online, buy something online. E-commerce really took off by being able to do that. Yeah, okay. In other words, kind of I'm trying to think of it. It's a B2B. In other words, business to business, things behind. Hang on a second. I'm doing. Okay. Flexes his apps. Very good. Okay. So the idea is that, of course, application, blah, blah, is, let's see, where was I? Okay, so the idea was with e-commerce is that essentially you could just click a button, put in some stuff, click on a button. This third party, business to business, would go to your bank, see if the money was really there, and then be able to guarantee or send the people going, yep, okay, the person really has money, that sort of thing, and be able to charge your account. Pretty cool. Just click of the buttons and work. Okay, so PayPal was actually a service of a company that I haven't heard of, also called Confinity, which they merged with the XCOM. And then by 2001, they had changed the whole company's name to PayPal, which of course we've all heard of now. And it was bought by eBay, which is a company we've all heard of, for about $1 billion. Wow, that's really, really nice. Actually, Elon Musk got about $350 million out of that, which was very nice also. And so now what do you do with $3 million? Anyone know what he did with his $350 million? I mean, he could have sat back and go, gee whiz, hey, I can go to anywhere I want on this. But he reinvested it in a couple of companies. Anybody happen to know what companies? What's he doing now? Yeah, he made $350 million from that deal. Not Google, that's another billionaire. Yeah, okay. That's one right there. Perfect. Tesla. And what was in the news this year that's kind of cool? Has to do with space. And. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. Okay, you got 100%. Okay, so one of the companies he invested in was SpaceX. Here again, if he wants to reduce the human footprint, what the goal of SpaceX is to reduce the cost of space transportation and be able to go to Mars. So if we kind of wipe ourselves out here, there'll be humans still around. So, which was part of his aim. So why does it cost money to go into space? Didn't know you're going to be quizzed, huh? But this is a discussion, and this is a science place, so we need to. Water? Well, that's kind of cool. Answer: there's probably a lot more water in space than there is down here. Yes. Okay. Fuel is part of it. In other words, you need fuel in order to generate, and minerals is definitely one of the things we'd like to get out there. And so you need fuel to generate the speed you need to get away from Earth's gravity. Does anybody know, just for kicks, how fast you have to go in order to just get into orbit, not get away from Earth's gravity, get into orbit? Yeah, there you go. There's more than. Now notice you said India, and is that a private company or is that a government-sponsored company? Because that's part of the difference of SpaceX is. 11 kilometers per second? Government, yes. Okay. And that's part of the deal is SpaceX is actually the first privately funded company to do some of these things. Most of them do require government, as we were talking about earlier, because it's only governments and very wealthy people that can do this kind of stuff. Yeah, private funds, in other words, for people that are interested in these things, they can certainly help fund it. A lot of things are funded in part by private and government. Okay, so in any case, fuel, in order to get into orbit, you need to go 17,000 miles per hour. 7 kilometers per second? Yeah, okay. And I didn't know what it was in seconds, and I don't know what it is in kilometers, except I think that translates to like 20-something kilometers per hour. And that's fast. And it takes a lot of energy. So, okay, for you guys, this will be an easy one. Is since we're in the science part, is how does a rocket work? Real simply. In other words, how do you get to 17,000 miles an hour, 8 kilometers per second? Okay. Yeah, escape. Well, actually, orbit is not escape velocity. It's still trying to fall back to Earth, but Earth is round, so it just keeps falling and goes around the Earth instead. Shoot stuff out the back real fast. Yes, that's kind of what I was getting at. And it can be marshmallows, or it can be. But the idea is kind of like in a car. Since we're going to get to the other one here in a minute, in fact we're going to get to this one, like that one here in a minute. But the idea of how a car works or a rocket works is, luckily, if you convert liquid to a gas, it expands by 10 times linearly, or 10 times 10 times 10, or 1,000 times. And if you do it in a contained area or in a particular direction, that'll produce a lot of pressure, and it will push whatever you have pretty fast. So in a car, of course, it's in a tiny little area where you have gasoline and a spark and oxygen, and it goes a small little kaboom and presses a piston down. In a rocket, you basically have kerosene and oxygen, and you light them up, and it goes out the back and goes really fast. Now, the interesting thing that Elon Musk is also doing is he's developing absolutely combustion. He's developing another rocket, and here's a link to it, called the Raptor. This is the one they're going to use to go to Mars. And instead of kerosene, yeah, combustion is not always necessary. Anything which will push, in other words, reaction, opposite reaction, right? Anything that pushes hard in one direction will push whatever pushed it hard in the other direction. Ion propulsion, absolutely. In other words, ions out the back is one of them. You can even ride on the solar wind if you want. Lasers, all that good stuff. Vinegar and baking soda. Now, what was the one that sailing? Yeah, okay. Now, what was one that Mentos and Coca-Cola, right? Okay. But in any case, for rockets, the new rocket that they're building, instead of using kerosene, which basically every fusion drive, instead of using kerosene and oxygen like the ones before, they are going to be using dilithium crystal, in fiction. they're going to be using liquid methane, like you do have on Titan, and liquid methane, liquid oxygen, and it will be a company that's much more, a rocket that's much more efficient, and they're going to use it. Yeah, antimatter matter would be very nice as long as you don't dissolve or make everything go poof. Usually when you put antimatter and matter together, everything goes poof. Okay, so let's back to the presentation. Essentially, what Elon Musk did is, okay, they found a company in 2002. It takes a few years to figure out how rockets work so you don't go kaboom. And so the Falcon 1, which you can see on the slide, was kind of a little rocket, although that's a lot bigger in people, obviously, is launched in 2008. But in a couple more years, you have a much bigger rocket, the Falcon 9 launching. And then this year, I saw it live. It was kind of fun to watch, and I'll show you some stuff a little bit later in the presentation, is the Falcon Heavy, which was essentially kind of like 3 Falcon 9s all wrapped together, launched in 2008. And the significance of this is they're the first commercial company to do that. And we're going to get back to them in a minute. But what else is Elon Musk doing? Well, one of the things is he's making cool little cars like this. Okay. Now, we know, speaking of cool, what are the models of a Tesla? Anybody know? I'll give you a second, and then I will give you the answer, which you may not have guessed yet. Yeah, the one, in fact, I'll show you this in a minute, is these are the models of the Tesla. Actually, it's this. These are actually the models of the Tesla, and there's a reason for it. So there's a Model S, there's a Model X, there's a Model 3, and there's going to be a Model Y, which is basically a family car, an SUV. Yeah. And here again, remember what he's trying to do. Elon Musk is trying to make things more efficient, use less fuel, all of this stuff like that. So electricity, as long as you don't expend a lot of fuel, fossil fuels to make electricity, you can have a smaller impact. So Tesla was started in 2003. They're basically into electrical vehicles. So you really need to have a company also that makes good batteries, or that uses electricity in other ways. So yeah, okay. So this, by the way, is the 2020 Roadster, and if you have some money, it would be a great way to get around. And you'll see that this is not a slow-moving vehicle. It's got, it can go 1,000 kilometers. Yeah, it can go 1,000 kilometers on one charge. It can go like crazy, 0 to 60 miles per hour. Let's see, what is that? 90 or whatever in kilometers in 1.9 seconds. That is really, really moving. In fact, you better be pointed in the right direction. And 400 kilometers per hour. Not that we have any roads that you can do that on, but pretty amazing. Now, yeah, in other words, it's going to set you back in your seat. Okay, so the other thing is that you need to have a company that can create electricity and store it and all that good stuff like that. So let me show you. Oh, thank you. Good. Okay, let me show you what the other company he got is in 2006. Remember, we're talking about SpaceX and Tesla and all that stuff, early 2000s. So 2006, he's got a couple cousins who form a company called Solar City. And they specialized in solar energy services. So Tesla buys up Solar City. And now they're doing solar panels and what's called solar shingles, which, by the way, is what we see on the previous slide. Those are not solar panels, but solar shingles on that roof there, and they're a little different and better than panels. And then also something called a power wall. Power wall is essentially a battery for the house that runs all the electricity for the house. If you run it with the solar panels, you don't need to be on an electric grid. And if the power goes out, like for example, where I live in Texas, Houston had a huge flood and power was out, and same thing with Puerto Rico and stuff. If you had one of those, it will give you power for about a week. And if you have the sun, it'll give you power for as long as you want. Okay. So you can see how all of this works together. Now, in addition to, oh, okay, great, thank you. I always like to see world examples of these different things. In other words, I may know what's going on in one part of the world, but I like to see how other people are doing it. Now, another company that he got involved with is something called OpenAI. AI, of course, artificial intelligence. One of his beliefs and other beliefs is essentially that if we don't watch it, that artificial intelligence can become more powerful than people. So we have to, so like I did in the first presentation, essentially, pitch for science is you got to know how things work and keep more intelligent than things. So this OpenAI company is supposed to promote and develop friendly artificial intelligence. They've got some products. Elon Musk left the company this year because Tesla's going to be doing some of this stuff with, like everybody seems to be in what? Autonomous vehicles, yeah, which require data, not lore, like as in Data's brother. Yeah, exactly. There. Perfect. Okay, now I understand the analogy. In other words, one's good and one's not so good. Got it. Okay. I had to think, I had to put my Star Trek Next Generation hat on. That's been a while too. Okay. So that's one of the companies that he's into. And of course, AI is really big, but we have to keep ahead of that. Oh, by the way, one of the, there's companies using Watson. Watson is IBM's big, really artificial intelligence brain thing. And I just recently did my taxes, and the tax company is using Watson to One Jeopardy. The tax company is using Watson to generate like what if scenarios, and medical people are using it, all that good stuff like that. So IBM is kind of back in the news as far as the companies in the know. Okay, so come 2012, now we'll get back to SpaceX here in a second, but come 2012, Elon Musk is into trying to create ground-wise transportation that works a little better than what we have now. Here again, trying to limit the fossil fuel needs and such. And so the Hyperloop is a enclosed train system. This one here is not so enclosed. I just used the type of train that he's working on. And does anybody know how this works? Does anybody know? Okay, first of all, if you're going to have an electric car, what do you need to do? How does it, what basically do you need to do? Yeah. In fact, actually, that number at the bottom is a little fast. I was reading that they really theoretically they want to only get to about 670 miles per hour, about 1,100 kilometers per hour, because you're approaching the speed of sound. And when you try to get past the speed of sound on the ground or even in the air, things happen, and you don't want to, a little harder to do that. Yeah, maglev. Okay, now when you talk about maglev versus what's called linear induction motors and stuff, yeah, there you go. Okay, so a vacuumed tube, in other words, to reduce air friction. If you're on rails themselves, you're going to have a lot of friction. So you need to get it off the rails. You need to get in a tube. And so let me give you a good explanation of how linear motors work, because this is how his okay, there's a good YouTube that explains it. Okay, and linear motor, in other words, okay, if you're gonna have an electric car, you've got to have rotary motion, in other words, to move the wheels, and you can do rotary motion pretty easily the same way that you create electricity in hydroelectric dam, or the way we generally create electricity with a turbine. But if you're going to do a vehicle that moves straight, you have to have this linear induction motor. So that YouTube will give you a good idea how this works. It's kind of like the maglev, essentially, where you're using magnets to speed this thing along, and then of course the evacuated tube, etc., etc. So that's good. Now they're good right now. Elon Musk is working up getting some more billions by trying to put this in different places. One of the places that they wanted to put that was up and down the west coast of the United States. He did get permission to do one up and down the east coast of the United States, but also Mid-East, and there's several different places he's working. There's one from Helsinki to Stockholm that he's working on, all this good stuff. Yeah, yes, and to tell you the truth, I'm not a physicist, so the difference between exactly how the maglev versus linear induction works, and Montreal to Toronto, Dallas, all that good stuff like that. I know Austin, in other words, the area I live in. Austin's just an hour and a half away, depending on traffic, from where I am. All that good stuff. Okay, so in any case, here's a question. The problem is that if you put in a new system like what you see here, or you build a freeway, what do you have to do? If it's sitting on the ground or anywhere near the ground. Yeah, you got real estate. In other words, you got to ask somebody, hey, do you mind that the idea is that if you're going to build a new road from one place to another, what do you have to do to get it from point A to point B? Easements, yeah. You're going to have to ask somebody, hey, by the way, do you mind my building? Well, now that's a very good point. The double-decker over the interstates, one of the things that Elon Musk is trying to do is find places where, say, in the United States, the federal government owns the freeways, okay? They've already got permission. They've got this big area in the center of the freeways to keep cars from running into each other. So the middle area between freeways, exactly, I-35 would be wonderful. In fact, they're trying on I-35 in Texas to put a light rail system, but something like this would be even better, especially from here to Dallas. Yeah, you put it in the medians, okay? So now you've got this really fast train going in the medians. Okay, so all you have to do is then, as somebody suggested earlier, is yes, he can make some more billions by getting the government to help. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Or what's the other possibility? You could put it in the air, but it's got to still be held up there. But what's the other thing you could do? So on the ground, in the air, or yeah, underground. Whoa, hey, let's see. Hang on a second. This is the. Let's see. Where's the company? Not that one. Hang on a second. I'm trying to find. Let's. Just a second. Which is the one? No. Where's my slide about the tunnels? Okay, hang on a second. Okay, keep that thought just a second, because he's got another company called the Boring Company, and what it does is make tunnels. So hang on a second. Okay, so we got, yeah, exactly. So you go underground. You just have to ask people, can I go under your thing? Let me see. Do I have it on the next one? Not yet. Where did I put that? Did I already have? Did somebody already see the one having to do with tunnels? somewhere I have one having to do with tunnels. Oh, boo. Okay, well, hang on a second. Trust me, there's a company called the Boring Company, and I know I have it in. I have it here somewhere. So let me just back up to here. Okay, so now another company he's working on is called Neuralink. So this one is a brain control interface. Has anyone ever seen anything about brain control interface? Yeah. Yeah, the modern tunneling machines are quite amazing, particularly the ones that like put the tunnels in through the Alps in Europe. Absolutely amazing. Or underground with the ch channel, those sorts of things. What's that? BCI? Yeah, the channel. Yeah, brain control interface has been around for a while. I remember watching a video about a monkey about 10 years ago where the monkey had its arms like tied down to its side and it was controlling an arm with a banana. And the monkey was able to bring the arm, the robot arm over to it so it could eat the banana. And so Elon Musk has gotten in on this, a company called Neuralink, and think about all the different things he can do. Essentially, if you have brain diseases that are keeping you from moving parts of you, this can help with that. It can help control prosthetic limbs, all that good stuff. Yeah, like I would love to be doing that right now instead of having to type or move or click or things like that. That'd be far easier to do stuff in Second Life for sure. But well, think about it. Is that Sean? Is that you were mentioning you just had a granddaughter. Now, in your granddaughter, she's going to one day go, "You used a keyboard? You know how primitive." In other words, why didn't you just move it with your mind? I'm certain that in her lifetime, things like keyboards and mice are going to be really primitive. People are just going to think about it and it's going to type or say or do whatever it is that we do. If I could think about that, I'd get rich like Elon Musk. Yes, he is. That's a very good point, Baragon, because we all are. It's just like, in fact, somebody mentioned Star Trek earlier. In one of the other presentations, we all know that in Star Trek, they used to have a communicator. They used to have something in their ear that looked like Bluetooth. And the communicator, of course, the first cell phones did have that flip over the same way that they have with with that communicator back in the 60s. So who knows, decades from now, all of that stuff. We're highly influenced by science fiction. In fact, there is let's see, is it a new book or a series or movie or something? In fact, no, there's a new company that actually will charge you money for digging up stuff having to do with science fiction and then seeing how you might be able to apply it. In other words, they're kind of a science fiction data mining company. I was reading about that the other day or hearing about it. Okay, so in any case, brain control interfaces. Think of this. Tell me, okay, raise your hand, haha, if you'd love to have a tricorder. Exactly, one day. Raise your hand or cough or do something. Yeah, okay, if you'd like to have, because not everybody will, if you'd like to have a chip that's kind of like implanted under the skin, and so you don't forget anything. In other words, everything you've ever seen, everything you've ever heard, everything you've ever read, maybe you could plug it into Google, whatever, and then you'd remember all of it. And it would also help your brain process things faster. Now, yes, very Black Mirror. That's a very good point. Is that, yeah, absolutely. In other words, we have to be smarter than the stuff, right? So we got to know how it works. We got to be smarter than it. I would love to, for example, I noticed the thing where you're talking about Ola and Chow. I would love to, for example, be able to speak every language there is, and with a chip. Wouldn't that be cool? Of course, don't you guys? I'm really veering off topic now, but you guys know about the new software that's out, right? That will look like you can speak any language. In other words, you have somebody take a video of them. The new software will, like Photoshop, only with videos. It moves the mouth, and somebody like a Chinese speaker could be speaking Chinese. It makes the mouth move as if the person's perfect Chinese speaker, except it's in their voice. So you could literally look like you were a perfect speaker. Isn't that cool? It's very scary, but it's kind of cool. It also says that just like Photoshop, we won't know whether videos are real or not. And then there were, yeah, exactly. Radiolab, PPR, that sort of thing. Universal translators, exactly, all that stuff. We'd love to have those things. And what's really good, and the reason why we're even in Second Life doing science circle and stuff, is that all of this is kind of coming to life. I mean, this is not like science from 100 years ago. This is now. This is stuff right now that's happening. That's what is really fascinating. I mean, for all the woes of the world, we do have some really interesting stuff that's happening. Okay, so let's keep moving along. And I don't know where my slide is from the Boring Company, whatever. Okay, so now let's get back to SpaceX. Is that one of the things about SpaceX is that it is a privately funded company. Here again, most companies, whether it's the European Space Agency or India or Russia or France or other people that put stuff into space, Japan, China, let's see. The boring slide. Hang on. Okay. I will have to, I will have to look back at my slides here and see which number it is. Because I can tell you exactly what number it is. It is number 9. So let me see if I can find it just a second. But number 9. And no, that says it's Neuralink. Hang on a second. Okay. And that is hyperlink. What happened? Okay, I'm missing a slide. Yeah, a slide fell asleep or something. No, it was here. It was here during the first one. Something's kind of a miss. Okay, and her shoes were number 9. Yeah, Clementine. Yeah, ooh, somebody must have moved it. We have a pretty smart crowd out there this time around. Okay, cool. Okay. The PowerPoint company, no kidding. Okay, so SpaceX, well, that's possible too. Maybe they moved the number. I'm going to have to look on the slides and see if for some reason it got corrupted or the number changed or something. But the big idea is that SpaceX is a privately owned company. I mean, they're privately funded. And they're the first companies to successfully launch, orbit, and recover spacecraft. First one to send a spacecraft to International Space Station. And then they have what's called propulsive landing. Now, anybody old enough to remember with the space shuttle, what did they have that they could recover with the space shuttle? It's kind of sad we don't have, the United States doesn't have anything that can go in orbit anymore. Okay, yeah, they glided to the ground, but when they were taking off, what'd they have? How did they get it up there? Yeah, the fuel tanks, right? And then the fuel tanks fell back, and they recovered them and all that stuff. Well, of course, with Elon Musk SpaceX, those side fuel tanks, the solid rocket or solid fuel booster things, land themselves. Isn't that cool? Yeah. Okay, so Excuse me. I need some coffee. Or something. So I have that slide. If you ever saw it, that was the most cool thing. I mean, first of all, Elon Musk had a lot of guts because this was the very first time they were going to take off with this Falcon Heavy, and he tells the world about it. And of course, he doesn't say a whole lot because he said he only had about a 50-50 chance that the thing would even work to begin with. But then the thing takes off. It does perfectly. It puts his Tesla into orbit. Oh, thank you. From the India Express. That's, by the way, there's several India papers that are very good on keeping up with technology and things like that. They're good to look at. So he not only launches his Tesla, but the rockets, the side rockets, land like it was a script. It was amazing. So those are called propulsive landing rockets. And so this is the first company to reuse that sort of stuff and then send a spacecraft into solar orbit, which is what the Tesla is. Well, let's take a look at some of those. The next thing that Elon Musk is doing is he's got what's called the Dragon 2 or Crew Dragon. I like the old name better. He called it the Dragon Rider. That was the early name. I don't know why they scrapped that ride. Maybe or a name. Maybe it was already copyrighted. But this Dragon spacecraft that will have up to 7 passengers. It's got a very, very impressive 120,000 pounds of thrust. Now, the reason it has that is for a couple reasons. Think of it. You got 7 people in this thing. The rocket's going up. Something goes wrong with the rocket. And so now you want to land back on Earth. You need to have something that kind of looks like a mini space shuttle to land back on the Earth. In other words, it separates from this rocket that's having problems, comes back, land on Earth. Now, if you go all the way to Mars, then it separates from whatever got it to Mars, and it lands on Mars. That's the whole idea. And so they're going to be testing this thing in August in orbit, and then they're supposed to fly to the International Space Station in December. And don't be surprised if, yeah, that's, yes. Okay, don't be surprised if, oh, did they already test it? I know they tested a kind of the engine part and kind of a hovering test. I didn't know whether they tested it further, but don't be surprised. You know, this is Elon Musk, and why did he send his Tesla into orbit? In other words, what's the big deal about that? Yeah, tourism in space, all that stuff. Well, you're right. The lag would be about 4 minutes from Mars. Product placement. Wow, absolutely. It was perfect PR. But what do they usually send up when they're trying to test a rocket? Like a rocket that will send up satellites, that sort of thing. Anybody know what they usually put in a rocket? No, but you know, actually, dogs have been used. The Soviets used dogs since the early '50s, and the U.S. I think has used them also. Leica, yeah, Leica was not the first. Leica was like 10 years after the first. It's just that Leica was the first in orbit. A very small. Okay, now you're getting closer. Not a duck. Ashes. Well, they use kind of like a big concrete. Think of concrete that weighs as much as a satellite. But this is Elon Musk. So what's cool? What's cool is to send your own private cherry red Tesla Roadster into space. That was what's cool. That was what the brilliant part of this was. It was like, okay, this is not only the biggest rocket to go in space since the Saturn V last launched in 1973. I mean, that's impressive to begin with. And one thing I didn't tell the first group there was, anybody know the difference between the Saturn V? First of all, are there anybody? Yeah. Okay. That's kind of what I'm getting at. If we're talking about idea here, is if we were to launch, if we were to put, sorry, I'm probably sitting too close for yelling, is if we were to put a Saturn V into rocket into space now, anybody know how much it would cost? It would cost about $1.5 billion to put Saturn V back into orbit. I mean, excuse me, back into thing. Now, why do we need a rocket the size of the Saturn V or the Falcon Heavy? Because you have, if you're going to leave the Earth, it's not just getting into orbit. You need to be going 40,000 kilometers per hour to get past the, in other words, to get to the moon, to get over the Earth's gravity, or that's about 25,000 miles an hour. So the Saturn V last launched in 1973. I happen to be old enough to remember all of the launches, and I remember seeing that. I was in college at the time, and the it's much bigger than the Falcon Heavy, but the Falcon Heavy only costs about $90 million to go into orbit. It would have cost $1.5 billion to put the Saturn V in orbit in today's. Okay, sorry. It may be the. Okay. Okay. I will type. I will talk and type, see if anybody still hears me. So the idea is do not be surprised if the dragon goes around the moon in late 2018. Okay, okay, clear again. I'll see if I can type and print here just in case. We don't have many slides left. Oh, static like? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this is the big rocket. This is the Falcon Heavy, which, like I said, is the biggest rocket since the Saturn V. I don't know quite how much it weighs, but it's pretty heavy. Now, by the way, compared to the Saturn V, it's it's only about half. It's about 250 feet tall compared to Saturn V, 360 feet. Okay. But what was cool was that they did launch the thing. Now, here are the boosters landing like choreographed. That was cool. Seeing them actually, in other words, the thing launching and then the rocket, the boosters landing together like that. It was just most cool. I think people like the rocket boosters landing as much as they did the rocket launch. Although the Tesla thing in orbit now, where is the roadster? You know. And so Elon Musk is having fun. You, let's see, you could too with a few billion. And that's the underlying story. In other words, who is Elon Musk, and why is he doing all this fun stuff? Because he can. And yeah. No, that's enough oomph to escape solar gravity. Okay, so you got to be going a lot faster to escape solar gravity. In fact, anybody know how fast things like Voyagers go? How fast are Voyagers? Okay, anybody know how fast they're going? Because okay, so to get into orbit, you have to go 17,000 miles an hour. Okay, to get out of the Earth's gravity, you got to go 25,000 miles an hour. To go 120 miles an hour, that would not get you out of the Earth's, solar gravity. They're going, let's see, actually, I need to look, but it's something like somewhere between 50 and 75,000 miles an hour, or even 100,000 miles an hour, but it's a lot faster than get just out of the Earth's gravity. They need to get out of the sun's gravity. I don't think the Roadster is going to crash into anything in his lifetime. They were even conjecturing whether it will crash into asteroids, but it's kind of like the big space, like aircraft. Okay, big space, small object type of philosophy. In other words, there's a lot of space out there. Oh, 40 kilometers. Good, thank you. To escape the sun from Earth. Yes, of course. There we go. Because, oh, perfect. Thank you, astronomer. Syzygy. Now, I wonder how fast it would take to escape the galaxy's gravity. That's way more, of course. You're talking billions and billions of suns. In fact, I think it's around 1 trillion suns of gravity. at last count there. If you count all the dark matter and stuff, I think it's about 1 trillion suns gravity. That's going to take a lot of oomph to get out of the galaxy. So, really? Oh, good. I need to, okay, see, that's one of the numbers I'll remember there to escape the galaxy from the sun's position. You have these handy. Good for you. Okay, so we have been here about an hour. That's about what I like to do because everybody kind of falls asleep or goes away after an hour. So thank you very much for participating. I've had fun. I like these things. I wish I could be in here more often. Now, by the way, let me just, thank you. Okay, so by the way, you can take a copy of the presentation. I think actually there's only about like 16 slides on this presentation, but I have 126 slides on there. So there's like maybe, oh, I'm sorry. So there's about I don't know how many presentations on the slide. You can take it, but, okay, slide viewer can take copy. However, look at script program. Need to type in your name to use controls. This is like I mentioned before, this is a very old slide thing. It's about at least 10 years old. The script was made by a guy named Troy McLuhan, who used to be the face of science back in before Science Circle even got started. And I got it back then, so the slide viewer's a little old. So basically you go into the program. It's very easy if you just, yeah, you remember Troy. So it's very easy. His actual real name is Troy McConaughey. Yeah, he does. And that's why it was kind of fun. And there you go. Okay, we have more fun stuff coming up. Genes and genomes and stuff like that, because we've had some really breakthroughs with genes and genomes. So be sure to come again. And then I think I have, pulls up his genes. Very good. Okay. I think I have another presentation in later April. And it's going to be a updated one of the very first presentation in Science Circle was, May, okay. But it's the very first presentation given in Science Circle back in March of 2008, and it's on the Anthropocene epoch. I will use the same slides I used back then, but I'm going to update it for 10 years later, and that'll be in May. So if I don't see you sooner, I will see everybody next week. I have fun. Okay. So come next Saturday. I wish they would too, and I wish I had more time in First Life to do stuff in Second Life. I really enjoy talking with people all over the world and people I've known for like 10 years. Isn't that amazing? Okay. Take care. Unfortunately, I do have First Life stuff coming up. I got to get ready for classes, and I know 10 years, and I got to get ready for classes and other stuff. And my wife, by the way, is out on a tractor on our property doing stuff, and I need to help her. Well, and family. Okay, and congratulate Chantel. Okay, take care. Have fun.